Hello and welcome to At World's Edge, the Fantasy Lore Podcast. In today's episode, we will be discussing The Lords of the Lands by Graham McNeill, the first Warhammer the Old World tie-in novel. I will go through the book summary with a bare minimum of spoilers, as I think you're really going to enjoy it yourself. Then we will talk about the place in this story in both terms of the Warhammer narrative, as well as the Games Workshop Year 1 marketing strategy. Finally, we will examine the themes presented in the story and contribute to that discussion on the subject as well. We begin our journey in the fortress port of Cassos, a border principality under the control of Baron Lothar of House Aquilena, a cadet branch of the Dukedom of Kelnales in Bretonnia. The land is attacked by the undead allies of the Tomb Kings of Kemri, and after calling their own allies from Bretonnia proper under the command of Duke Carat of Kelnales, they set out to recover the kidnapped son of the Baron. Our heroes journey over sand and sea, learning about each other and trading exposition about the lands and times they live in before arriving in the ancient land of the dead. Seemingly dead and buried in the sands, the knights face little resistance as they journey south, eventually coming to the great ancient capital of Kemri itself. The luck of our party would falter, however, in the shadow of Cetra's Great Pyramid, and they were ambushed by the undead legions of Sekhet the Amarthine Queen. Barely escaping with most of their lives, our heroes, now led by Caroline, the late Baron Lothar's daughter, and Sir Varro, equerry to the late Duke, the party marches north, pursued by the Tomb Queen and her servants, ambushed by ghouls, set upon by greenskins, and accosted by a hungry giant. The party dwindles in number, but grows in faith. Their trials and tribulations forge them into the heroes the story demands. With the path before them as much by deduction as planning, the remaining knights and peasants of Bretonnia drive to the sea, hoping to obtain a fleet to steal away home ahead of the approaching ossified hordes. Between them and the sea, though, are not only their undead pursuers, but also an immense greenskin encampment. Through a mix of skill, bravery, divine intervention, and cunning, the band prevails, setting their sights for home across the sea. But as they pull away from the jetty and march into the open ocean, a clear call is heard. Cetra has awakened, and the Tomb Kings march to war. The story of the Lords of the Lands takes place in the 2320s imperial calendar, during the reign of Luin the Orcslayer's errantry and his errantry wars against the Greenskins. It is set in the Border Princes, the Land of the Dead, or Nehekara, and the Badlands, all areas ill-explored in Warhammer Fantasy in this period. Our heroes' journey are essentially a prequel to the great struggle of this period as laid out in the arcane journals for both the Tomb Kings and the Bretonnians, which is Cetra's invasion of Bretonnia via the overland route through the Border Princes and then the Black Mountains. This is a change from the chaos-centric storyline of both the End Times and also of the Age of Sigmar, as chaos is not a direct combatant here. That said, it also uses exposition to give us some context for the other races we may encounter in the setting. We hear about the Wood Elves of Ethel Loren and their interactions with the Bretonnians on their border. We hear about the Dwarves of Barrack-Bar, which is a sort of anchor of order in the otherwise lawless Border Princes. Kislev and Norsika also receive shoutouts, as does the Empire of Sigmar. We know that these are all coming based on the marketing snippets and rumors, so whetting our appetites is hardly a bad idea. Speaking of marketing, the Lords of the Lands forms a cornerstone of the otherwise lackluster effort by Games Workshop to promote their new product line. As a standalone entry, it would always have been fun, but as the first foray back into the world that was in years and a primer for new products, it's invaluable. The descriptions of units, spells, and terrain make you feel like you can picture them laid out in front of you, supporting new model, paint, and supply sales. The narrative arc follows those of the current season of the gamebooks released so far, making sure players have a backstory they can invest in, a technique perfected in the Age of Sigmar's line itself. Apart from the narrative and gameplay-related themes we've touched on, Lords of the Lands is also a thoroughly modern book with a modern socio-political theme, first of which is representation. Lords of the Lands makes an extra effort to portray female LGBTQ and ability diversity throughout its story, both overtly and subtly. While I would not be able to agree that women have been underrepresented in Warhammer Fantasy battles, they've never been strongly represented as knights in human lands. And as for sexual orientation, the Warhammer world has only shallowly delved into romance at all, with many characters having little or no romantic development. Ableism historically has been represented well, in such characters as Altharion, who was blind, or the physically crippled Malarian, both of whom were immensely powerful characters, despite having a different ability. Deafness in the medieval world, however, is on full display in this story, and it's a welcome addition. Where the story falls a little flat is in tabletop representation matching what the book tells us. I would have thought that in connection with the book, they would have released some new female heads for their Pegasus Knights, or torsos as well, given that the entire Pegasus Knight squadron of the story was female. Additionally, new torsos and heads for peasants would also be on the table, yet for the same reason. Perhaps in the future we'll see some representation from the stories found on the tabletop as well, in the same way that we've done with the Stormcast Eternals in Age of Sigmar. There's also a strong adherence to the traditional hero's journey, that storytelling device which sees a character begin at point A, experience hardship, learn and grow through training and mentorship, and rise to overcome to emerge more powerful than before. This is a welcome change, as in recent years there's been a bit of a movement in media towards discovering the power within yourself, in opposition to learning and growing to become great. In the story, most of the main point of view characters undergo a journey whereby they have to challenge the worldview they started with and learn from each other to train and become better people than they were before, with Lady Severine of the Pegasus Knight serving as the archetypal tragic figure as well, giving us a well-rounded cast of characters to look with, to experience the world with. Finally, the story was held together by themes of duty, honor, and fidelity. Right or wrong, the driving force of each of the main characters was not military necessity or tactical acumen, but a desire to satisfy honor. Baron Lothar is honor-bound to save his son. Duke Herod is honor-bound to help his brother. The knights under their command have a duty to serve, and when all seems lost, faith in each other, in the lady, and their newfound brotherhood keeps the ragtag group together. This was not a story about glory-seeking, abstract religious strife, classism, politics, ethnocentricity, racial animus, and even though both the Tomb Kings and Bretonnians would be well served by these themes, this was a simple, straightforward journey that the audience can rally behind and use as a vessel to introduce themselves to Warhammer the Old World, exactly as it was intended to do. Thank you all for turning into this book review, and I hope to see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please click like, share, and subscribe buttons on your screen. You have a great day, and thank you again.